Lucky break. Isn't it graduating top of her class like that? Clara Reed scoffed, her gaze fixed on Maya Evans' glowing brown skin at the University of Pennsylvania's law graduation. Maya, a breathtaking black valedictorian with her hair elegantly coiled, endured the Reed family's scorn, jabs at her race veiled in smug tones. Each insult stung, but Maya held a secret that would turn their world upside down. What could it be? Will their bias unravel, or will Maya's strength redefine their reality? Stay tuned to find out. If you love tales of triumph, smash that subscribe button and tell us where you're listening from. New York, Philadelphia, or beyond. Share your predictions. How will Maya shine? This twist will shock you, so don't miss it. The University of Pennsylvania's quad buzzed with the electric hum of commencement day. Graduates in navy gowns milled about, their laughter mingling with the rustle of spring leaves. Maya Evans stood apart. Her reflection shimmered in a nearby fountain, her deep brown skin glowing under the midday sun, and her tightly coiled hair swept into an elegant high bun gleamed like a crown. The burgundy silk dress beneath her gown hugged her frame, a quiet rebellion against the muted tones around her. At 27, Maya was no ordinary graduate. She was the law school's valedictorian, a scholarship student who had clawed her way to the top with grit and brilliance. Today, she'd deliver the commencement address, her words poised to echo beyond the ivy-covered walls. Maya's fingers grazed the note cards in her pocket, her speech a tapestry of justice and resilience. She'd spent weeks crafting it, each sentence a tribute to her parents, her mother, a school teacher who had worked double shifts, and her father, a carpenter who taught her to fix what the world broke. Her journey hadn't been easy. Growing up in a modest neighborhood in Camden, she'd faced teachers who doubted her, peers who whispered about quotas, and a society that often saw her skin before her mind. Yet here she was, ready to claim her place. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. A text from Aiden Reed, her boyfriend of 2 years. Almost there, love, you're going to kill it. A smile tugged at her lips. Aiden, with his easy grin and coder's intensity, had been her anchor. Their love had bloomed over late-night study sessions and jazz club dates, his warmth a counterpoint to her fire. But today wasn't just about her triumph. It was the first time Aiden's family would meet her. The Raids, a wealthy Philadelphia dynasty, were a world apart from her own. Aiden had downplayed their influence, but Maya sensed the weight of their expectations. She scanned the crowd, her heart quickening as she spotted Aiden weaving through the sea of gowns, his dark hair catching the light, and his gray suit fitting him like a promise. Behind him trailed 3 figures, their polished elegance unmistakable. Clara Reed led the pack, her ash-blonde hair swept into a chignon, her cream dress screaming understated wealth. Richard, broad-shouldered in a navy suit, followed with a measured stride. Elise, Aiden's older sister, strutted in a tailored blazer, her auburn hair cascading in calculated waves. They were a portrait of privilege, and Maya felt their gaze before they reached her. Maya, Aiden's voice was warm as he pulled her into a quick embrace, his cedar cologne grounding her. You look incredible, she smiled, her bun gleaming as she tilted her head. Thanks, Aiden, ready for this circus? He chuckled, but his eyes flicked nervously to his family. Maya braced herself as Clara stepped forward, her smile as crisp as her dress. Maya, how lovely to meet you, she said, her voice smooth but cool. Her handshake was fleeting, her fingers barely grazing Maya's. That dress is bold, quite a statement for today. Maya's jaw tightened, but she kept her tone even. Thank you, Mrs. Reed. I wanted to honor the occasion. The word bold lingered, a subtle jab at her choice to stand out. She'd faced such coded slights before, remarks that cloaked judgment and courtesy. Richard offered a curt nod, his eyes scanning her, like a ledger. Aiden's told us about you, he said, his tone flat. Law school's tough. You must have worked hard to keep up. The implication stung. Keep up? As if her place here was a fluke. Maya straightened, her bun a silent testament to her poise. I did. Top of the class doesn't come easy, but I earned it. Elise's laugh was sharp, her eyes raking over Maya's gown. Oh, I bet a full scholarship, right? That's fortunate. Not everyone gets those breaks. Her emphasis on fortune was a blade suggesting Maya's success was luck, not merit. Maya's pulse quickened, but she held Elise's gaze. Fortune favors the prepared. I made sure I was. Her voice was calm, but a fire simmered beneath. She'd spent years proving herself in rooms like this, where her skin drew scrutiny before her words. Aiden shifted his hand, brushing Maya's. "Maya's brilliant," he said, his tone firm but tinged with unease. "She's about to blow everyone away with her speech." Clara's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How inspiring," she said, the word clipped. "I'm sure it'll be memorable." She turned to Aiden, her hand on his arm. "Darling, we should find our seats. You'll want a good view of the stage." Maya caught the subtext. Aiden was theirs, and she was an outsider. Richard and Elise followed Clara's lead, their farewell nods perfunctory as they walked away. Elise's voice carried back. "Lucky break, that valedictorian spot. Wonder how she pulled it off." The words landed like a slap. Maya's fingers curled into her palm, but her face remained serene. She'd heard worse. Professors who questioned her citations, classmates who assumed she was the diversity hire. But this was different. These were Aiden's people, the family she'd hoped might embrace her. Their disdain wasn't just for her degree, it was for her very existence in their world. Aiden's hand found hers, his grip tight. "Ignore them," he whispered. "They're just set in their ways. They'll come around." Maya met his eyes, searching for conviction. She wanted to believe him, but the knot in her chest tightened. "Aiden, they're not just set in their ways. They're judging me. You heard them." He hesitated, his jaw clenching. "I'll talk to them, okay? Today's your day. Focus on your speech." She nodded, but his words felt like a bandage on a wound that needed stitches. As the crowd began to file into the auditorium, Maya adjusted her gown, her bun a beacon of resolve. She'd fought too hard to let the reeds dim her light. Her speech was her weapon, a chance to show the world and Aiden's family who she was. But as she stepped toward the stage, a question gnawed at her. Would Aiden stand by her if his family's subtle venom grew sharper? The answer lay ahead, in the hours that would test not just her strength, but the love they'd built. The fountain's ripple faded behind her, and Maya lifted her chin. This was her moment, and no one, not even the reeds, could take it from her. But the air felt heavier now, charged with the promise of a storm. She couldn't yet see the auditorium of the University of Pennsylvania, pulsing with anticipation, its vaulted ceilings swallowing the murmurs of 1,000 guests. Rows of navy-clad graduates sat upright, their tassels swaying like pendulums. Maya Daniels stood backstage, her heart a steady drumbeat against the weight of her gown. Her high bun, a sculpted crown of coiled hair, caught the stage lights as she adjusted her note cards. Her fingers trembled slightly, a flicker of doubt threading through her resolve. What if her words weren't enough to silence their judgment? What if the reeds' disdain was right after all? She swallowed hard, willing the uncertainty down, but it clung stubbornly at the edges of her mind. The burgundy dress beneath her robe shimmered, a quiet defiance in a sea of conformity. She was moments from delivering the valedictorian address, her words poised to carve a mark on this day. Maya's mind flickered to the Reed family's cutting remarks an hour earlier, Elise's lucky break jab, Clara's veiled disdain, Richard's skeptical nod. Their words had stung, but she'd faced worse. Law professors who'd dismissed her arguments, classmates who'd whispered about affirmative action. The stage was her battleground, and her speech would be her sword. She glanced at the auditorium, spotting Aiden in the front row, his dark hair a beacon beside him. Clara's cream dress gleamed, her posture rigid. Richard and Elise flanked her, their faces unreadable. Maya's chest tightened. She needed Aiden to see her, not just as his girlfriend, but as the woman who'd earned this moment. The dean's voice boomed, introducing her. Maya Daniels, our valedictorian, whose brilliance and dedication have set a new standard. Applause rippled as Maya stepped forward, her heels clicking with purpose. The spotlight bathed her in gold, her brown skin radiant, her bun a symbol of unyielding resolve. A familiar tension pressed against her temples, a headache she had learned to ignore, born from sleepless nights and endless striving. She breathed slowly, steadying herself. She scanned the crowd, her gaze lingering on Aiden. His smile was warm, but his eyes darted to his mother, betraying a flicker of unease. Maya began, her voice clear and resonant. Today we stand at the edge of justice, a calling that demands we see beyond ourselves. I learned this from my parents who built a life from sacrifice, and from a world that often judged me before I spoke. Her words wove stories of late nights in the library, of cases she'd argued for marginalized communities, of a girl who'd turned doubt into fuel. The audience leaned in, captivated by her cadence, her passion, a living thing. A professor nodded from the side, a classmate wiped a tear. But in the front row, Clara's lips pressed into a thin line, her fingers clutching her purse. Elise whispered something to Richard, who gave a curt nod. Their dismissal was a silent blade slicing through Maya's triumph. She pushed on, her voice rising. Law isn't just precedent, it's a promise to fight for those who've been silenced. That's the legacy I carry, and it's why we're here. The auditorium erupted, a standing ovation shaking the rafters. Maya's heart soared, but as she stepped off the stage, her eyes sought Aiden. He clapped fiercely, pride in his gaze, but his family remained seated, their applause perfunctory. Clara's smile was a mask, and Elise's eyes rolled subtly. The contrast was stark. Hundreds celebrated her, but the Reeds saw only the color of her skin. Maya descended to the floor, her gown rustling as she approached Aiden. She wanted to share this victory, to feel his arms around her. But as she neared, Clara stood, her voice cutting through the crowd's din. Aiden, darling, let's get a family photo by the podium. Just us. She gestured to Richard and Elise, her eyes sliding past Maya as if she were invisible. Maya froze, her breath catching. Aiden hesitated, his hand half reaching for her. Mom, Maya should be in it. This is her day. Clara's laugh was light, brittle. Oh, of course, but we need one for the family album. Maya's got plenty of friends to pose with, I'm sure. Elise chimed in, her tone syrupy. Yeah, Maya. You must want pics with your study group or something. The words were a deliberate exclusion, a reminder that Maya didn't belong in their frame. Her fingers tightened around her diploma, the leather case grounding her. She just commanded a room of scholars. Yet here she was, reduced to an outsider. She looked to Aiden, her eyes pleading for him to act. He shifted, his jaw clenching, but his voice was soft. It's just one photo, Maya. We'll take more with you after. Her heart sank. His compromise felt like surrender, a crack in the foundation they'd built. Aiden, she said, her voice low but firm. This isn't about a photo, it's about them not seeing me. He opened his mouth to respond, but Clara was already ushering him away, her hand on his elbow. Richard and Elise followed, their backs a wall between Maya and the family she'd hoped to join. The crowd swirled around her, classmates offering congratulations, but Maya felt alone, the weight of the Reeds' rejection heavier than her gown. A professor approached, his silver hair glinting. Maya, that speech was extraordinary. You've got a gift. Maya smiled, thanking him, but Clara's voice drifted over, loud enough to carry. She's articulate, I'll give her that. But it's a lot of idealism for a lawyer, don't you think? Richard grunted in agreement, and Elise's laugh was a sharp echo. Maya's pulse roared. Their words weren't just about her speech. They were about her right to be here, to stand beside Aiden. She'd faced prejudice before, but this was personal, a test of the love she and Aiden had nurtured. As the graduates spilled onto the quad for photos, Maya lingered, her buns still pristine, her resolve hardening. The Reeds thought they could dismiss her, but they didn't know her strength. Tonight's celebratory dinner loomed, a new battlefield where their slights might sharpen. She needed Aiden to stand with her, not behind her. But his silence now was a warning. As the sun dipped, casting long shadows across the stone arches, Maya tucked her diploma under her arm. This was her day, and she'd fight for it. Speech or no speech, Reeds or no Reeds. But the question burned. Would Aiden rise to meet her, or would his family's legacy pull him away? The chandelier above the private dining room of Lille, Philadelphia's premier rooftop restaurant, cast a golden glow over linen-draped tables. Crystal glasses clinked, and the scent of truffle-infused risotto hung in the air. Maya Daniels sat poised, her high bun a sculpted emblem of grace, her burgundy dress catching the light like a quiet challenge. Her valedictorian triumph at the University of Pennsylvania's law graduation hours earlier still thrummed in her veins, but the Reed family's cold exclusion during the ceremony had left a bruise. Now, at this celebratory dinner, their polished smiles hid sharper blades, and Maya braced for the next assault. Aiden sat beside her, his hand brushing hers under the table, a gesture meant to reassure but tinged with tension. Across from them, Clara Reed sipped her Chardonnay, her cream silk blouse pristine, her eyes appraising Maya like a curator inspecting a questionable artifact. Richard, in a charcoal suit, cut into his steak with surgical precision, his silence a wall. Elise, her auburn hair swept over one shoulder, scrolled her phone, her lips curving in a half-smirk. The table was a stage, and Maya felt every glance dissect her skin, her bun, her presence in their world. Clara broke the quiet, her voice honeyed but edged. "Maya, your speech was quite passionate. Where did you grow up exactly? Somewhere vibrant, I assume?" The word vibrant was a coded jab, implying a rough urban upbringing, far from their manicured suburbs. Maya's fingers tightened around her fork, but her smile held. "Camden, a diverse community, strong on values. My parents worked hard to give me a solid foundation." Her tone was even, her bun gleaming as she met Clara's gaze, refusing to shrink. Elise looked up, her eyes glinting. "Camden's cute, I guess, but like really? You went from there to Valedictorian? That's unexpected." Her pause before unexpected was deliberate, suggesting Maya's success was an anomaly, not earned. Maya's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. "Hard work bridges any gap. I built my path step by step." Her words were a quiet defiance, but Elise's smirk lingered, undeterred. Richard cleared his throat, his fork pausing. "Public interest law, right? Noble, but it doesn't pay much, does it? Aiden's got a certain lifestyle to maintain." His tone was casual, but the implication was clear. Maya's career, her very existence, fell short of their standards. She met his stare, her bun a crown of resolve. "I fight for justice, Mr. Reed. That's worth more than a paycheck. Aiden supports my work." Her eyes flicked to Aiden, a silent plea for backup, but he shifted, his hand squeezing hers without words. Clara's laugh was soft, cutting. "How admirable. But surely it's exhausting, always dealing with such heavy issues." The word heavy dripped with subtext, as if Maya's focus on marginalized communities was a burden unfit for their table. Maya's stomach twisted, but she leaned forward, her voice clear. "It's rewarding. Every case I take, whether for a tenant facing eviction or a child seeking asylum, changes lives. That's my purpose." Her passion shone, but Clara's nod was perfunctory, her eyes cold. Elise set her phone down, her tone saccharine. "Okay, but isn't it like super intense? I mean, you must see some wild stuff, not exactly dinner party material." Her words trivialized Maya's work, painting it as chaotic, alien to their refined world. Maya's patience frayed, but her composure held, her bun unwavering. "I see people fighting for their dignity. That's human, not wild. It's the kind of work that shapes the world." Her eyes locked onto Elise's, and for a moment the older woman faltered, her smirk fading. Aiden finally spoke, his voice tight. "Maya's changing lives. I'm proud of her." His words were a spark, but they flickered against the chill of his family's scrutiny. Maya squeezed his hand, grateful but frustrated. She didn't need praise. She needed him to name the venom in their words. The server refilled their glasses, the clink of crystal punctuating the tension. Clara swirled her wine, her gaze sharpening. "Maya, you mentioned a scholarship. Was that one of those diversity programs?" The question was a dagger, implying her admission to law school was a handout, not merit. Maya's heart pounded, but her face was a mask of calm. "I earned my scholarship with top grades and test scores. Penn didn't give me anything I didn't deserve." Her voice was still, her bun a beacon of her unyielding strength. She held Clara's gaze, daring her to push further. Richard nodded, but his lips pressed thin. "Impressive. They're generous with those, I hear." The word generous was a subtle barb, echoing Elise's earlier lucky break taunt. Maya's chest tightened, the air thick with their judgment. Elise leaned back, her voice casual but cutting. "Must be tough, though, always having to prove yourself. I mean, not everyone sees you as valedictorian material." Her eyes flicked to Maya's bun, her skin as if they were evidence of her unworthiness. Maya's fork clattered softly against her plate, the sound swallowed by the restaurant's hum. She'd faced racism before, overt, systemic, whispered. But this was a new kind of battle. The Reeds weren't just questioning her credentials. They were questioning her right to sit here, to love Aiden. Each jab was a test, and Aiden's silence was a wound. She loved his kindness, his dreams, but love demanded more than warmth. It demanded courage. As the server cleared plates preparing for dessert, Clara's eyes met Maya's, sharp and assessing. "You're clearly driven, Maya, but Aiden's future requires a certain alignment. You understand, don't you?" The words were a velvet glove over a steel fist, implying Maya's blackness, her roots, could never fit their legacy. Maya's resolve hardened, her bun a silent vow. She opened her mouth to respond, her mind racing with a retort that would dismantle their arrogance without losing her dignity. But the server's arrival with crème brûlée paused the moment, the tension coiling tighter. The dinner was far from over, and Maya knew the next exchange could break the fragile civility. She was ready to fight, not just for Aiden's love, but for her own worth. But as Aiden's hand lingered on hers, his silence louder than his earlier defense, a question burned. Would he stand with her when the gloves came off? The private dining room at Lille shimmered with opulence, its chandelier casting fractured light across untouched crème brûlée and half-empty wine glasses. Maya Daniels sat like a statue carved from resolve, her high bun gleaming, her burgundy dress a defiant beacon against the sterile elegance. The Reed family's barbs, Clara's probing about her scholarship, Elise's dismissive jabs, Richard's insinuations, had sharpened throughout the dinner, each one a calculated strike at her right to be here, to love Aiden. Clara's latest remark, that Aiden's future required alignment Maya could never provide, hung like a guillotine. The air crackled, the civility of this celebratory dinner fraying at the edges. Aiden's hand rested on Maya's under the table, his grip tight but trembling. His earlier defense had been a flicker drowned by his family's relentless scrutiny. Maya's heart ached for him to do more, to name the prejudice cloaked in their polished words. She was a lawyer trained to dismantle lies, but this wasn't a courtroom. This was personal, and the stakes were her future. A server approached, his voice cutting through the tension. "Miss Daniels, the organizers would like you to say a few words as valedictorian." Maya nodded, her bun steady as she rose, smoothing her dress. The room filled with professors, classmates, and local legal luminaries turned to her, their faces warm with anticipation. Aiden's eyes followed, pride mingling with unease. Clara's smile was thin, Elise's smirk barely concealed, and Richard's gaze was a blank ledger. Maya stepped to the center, her heels clicking on the polished floor. The spotlight found her, her brown skin radiant, her bun a crown of quiet power. "Tonight we celebrate not just a degree, but a promise," she began, her voice a melody of conviction. "I stand here because of sacrifice, my parents, my own, and because I refuse to let doubt define me. Law is my weapon to fight for those the world overlooks, and I carry that duty with pride." Her words soared, weaving her journey from Camden's modest streets to this gilded room. The audience leaned in, a professor nodding, a classmate clapping softly. For a moment, Maya felt invincible, her triumph undeniable. But as she returned to the table, Elise's voice pierced the applause, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Cute speech, but those rags to riches stories, total cliché. Who buys that?" Clara's chuckle was sharp, her words aimed at Maya like an arrow. "She's fiery, I'll grant. But it's a bit theatrical for Aiden's world, don't you think?" The room seemed to shrink, the air sucked out by their public scorn. Maya's pulse roared, her fingers curling into her palms. She'd just bared her soul and they'd reduced it to a performance, her blackness a prop in their dismissal. She looked to Aiden, her eyes burning with a silent demand, "Say something." But he froze, his jaw tight, his hands still on hers but offering no shield. The silence was a betrayal deeper than any of the Reed's words. Maya's resolve snapped into place, a steel core forged in years of proving herself. She stood, her movement deliberate, her bun unwavering under the chandelier's glow. The clatter of silverware stilled every eye on her. "I'd like to add something," she said, her voice low but resonant, commanding the room like a gavel. The server paused, the organizers nodded, and Maya stepped back to the center, her presence a storm gathering strength. "Mrs. Reed, Elise, Mr. Reed," she began, her gaze sweeping the table, pinning each in turn. "You've questioned my roots, my work, my place here. You call my story a cliché, my passion theatrical. But let's be clear, your judgment isn't about my degree or my speech. It's about my skin, my heritage, and the audacity to love Aiden in your world." Her words were a blade slicing through their facade with surgical precision. Gasps rippled through the room, but Maya's voice never wavered. "I earned this moment. Every late night, every victory, every scar from a world that told me I wasn't enough. I'm a lawyer, a daughter, a woman who fights for justice, and I am more than enough for Aiden, for this room, for any legacy you claim to own." Her eyes locked on Clara's, whose wineglass trembled, her composure cracking. You think my blackness makes me less. That's your failure, not mine. I'm not here to fit your mold. I'm here to break it. The room held its breath, the silence deafening. Elise's smirk vanished, her face pale. Richard's fork clattered, his eyes darting to his wife. Clara's lips parted, but no words came, her authority stripped bare. Maya turned to Aiden, her expression softening but firm. I don't need saving, Aiden, but I need you to stand with me. Choose. Aiden's chair scraped as he stood, his face a storm of guilt and resolve. Enough, he said, his voice shaking but fierce, aimed at his family. Maya's the most extraordinary woman I know. Brilliant, fearless, and my future. You've judged her all night, and I let it happen for too long. If you can't respect her, you're pushing me out of this family. His words were a thunderclap, his hand reaching for Maya's, a vow in his grip. The dining room seemed to tilt, the chandelier's light stark against the chaos. Clara's face drained of color, her protest stifled by Aiden's glare. Elise shrank in her seat, her bravado gone. Richard cleared his throat, but his authority was hollow, overshadowed by Maya's unyielding presence. The other guests watched, some nodding, others whispering, the weight of Maya's truth reshaping the room. Maya stood tall, her bun a silent testament to her strength. She'd thrown down the gauntlet, and Aiden had finally risen to meet her. But the Reed's silence was not surrender. It was a pause, a prelude to their next move. The dinner was a battlefield, and Maya had claimed this round, but the war wasn't over. As Aiden's hand tightened on hers, she felt a spark of hope, tempered by the certainty that the night's final act was yet to come. The rooftop dining room at Lille was a battlefield strewn with the wreckage of shattered facades. The chandelier's dimming glow cast jagged shadows over untouched desserts, the air thick with the aftershock of Maya Daniels' searing words. Her high bun stood resolute, her burgundy dress a banner of defiance as she faced the Reed family's stunned silence. Clara's wineglass trembled, Elise's bravado had crumbled, and Richard's authority lay in tatters. Aiden's stand, his fierce declaration to choose Maya over his family's prejudice, had shifted the ground beneath them all. But the night wasn't over, and Maya's heart pounded with the certainty that the Reed's defeat was not yet complete. She sat, her posture regal, her bun gleaming like polished obsidian. Aiden's hand clasped hers, his grip a lifeline, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear, fear of the rift he'd just carved. The other guests murmured, their whispers a soft current beneath the tension. Maya's confrontation had been a thunderbolt, exposing the Reed's bias to a room of Philadelphia's legal elite. She felt their gazes, some admiring, others curious, but her focus remained on the table before her. She'd thrown down her truth, and now the Reeds would either retreat or strike back. Clara recovered first, her voice tight as she sat down her glass. Aiden, darling, you're being dramatic, she said, her smile a cracked veneer. We're simply ensuring your future. Maya's spirited, but we're just being realistic. The word realistic was a veiled barb, implying Maya's blackness was a liability. Maya's eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, a new voice cut through the room. Professor Elaine Carver, a titan in constitutional law with silver hair and a commanding presence, approached the table, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses fixed on Maya. Miss Daniels, a moment, she said, her tone warm but authoritative. The room stilled, every head turning. Elaine was a legend. Her endorsement was a golden ticket in legal circles. Maya rose, her bun steady, her pulse racing. Elaine's smile was genuine, a stark contrast to Clara's frost. I've just spoken with the managing partner at Kessler & Lane, Elaine said, loud enough for the table to hear. They've been following your work, your pro bono cases, your valedictorian record. They want you as a senior associate with a clear path to partner. It's a rare offer for someone your age. The words landed like a grenade. Kessler & Lane was a global law firm, its name synonymous with prestige. Maya's breath caught, her mind reeling. She dreamed of such an opportunity, but to hear it now, in this moment, felt like fate. She nodded, her voice steady despite her shock. Thank you, Professor. I'm honored. Elaine's gaze flicked to the Reeds, her expression cool. You've got a star here. I'd hoped her partner's family would see that. The rebuke was subtle but unmistakable, and Clara's face paled, her lips parting in protest, but finding no words. Elise's phone slipped from her hand, clattering onto the table. Richard's fork froze midair, his eyes darting between Maya and Elaine. Aiden's face broke into a grin, pride replacing his earlier fear. "Maya, that's incredible," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He squeezed her hand, his earlier hesitation gone, replaced by a fierce resolve. The room buzzed, guests whispering about Kessler and Lane's offer. Maya stood taller, her bun a crown of triumph. The Reeds had dismissed her as a lucky scholarship girl, but this revelation stripped their judgment bare. She wasn't just Aiden's girlfriend or a public interest lawyer. She was a force, courted by giants. Clara's voice trembled as she tried to regain control. "Well, that's impressive, Maya. We didn't realize you had such prospects." Her words were a concession, but they lacked warmth, a desperate bid to save face. Maya met her gaze, her voice calm but edged with steel. "You didn't ask, Mrs. Reed. You assumed I didn't belong." Her words were a mirror, reflecting the Reeds' prejudice back at them. Elise looked away, her fingers twisting her napkin. Richard cleared his throat, his authority diminished. Aiden stood, his chair scraping softly. "Mom, Dad, Elise," he said, his voice steady now. "I meant what I said. Maya's my future. If you can't respect her, her brilliance, her worth, then we're done here. No more dinners, no more holidays." His ultimatum was a wall, unyielding, and Maya's heart warmed. He wasn't just defending her, now he was choosing her fully. Clara's eyes widened, her composure fracturing. "Aiden, you can't mean that," she stammered, but his silence was answer enough. Richard shifted, his voice gruff. "Let's not escalate. We'll discuss this later." It was a retreat, not an apology, but it was more than Maya had expected. Elise, her face flushed, spoke softly. "Maya, I was wrong. You're amazing. I'm sorry." Her words were raw, a crack in the Reed's armor. Maya studied her, her bun unwavering. "Thank you, Elise. Words are a start, but actions matter more." Her tone was measured, offering a bridge but demanding accountability. Elaine nodded approvingly before returning to her table, leaving the Reeds exposed. The dinner resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. Guests approached Maya, offering congratulations on her offer, their warmth a stark contrast to the Reeds' chill. Maya smiled, her bun a silent vow of resilience, but her mind was already on the future. Kessler and Lane was a door to new battles, and Aiden's stand was a foundation to build on. As the evening wound down, Aiden leaned close, his voice a whisper. "I'm all in, Maya. I'll prove it every day." His eyes held a promise, and for the first time that night, Maya believed him. She squeezed his hand, her heart steadying. The Reeds' prejudice hadn't vanished, but their power over her had. She was Maya Daniels, lawyer warrior, and no one could dim her light. The chandelier flickered, its glow softening as guests began to leave. Maya stood, her bun pristine, ready to step into the night. The Reeds watched, their silence a concession, their legacy shaken. This was her victory, but the road ahead would test her and Aiden further. She was ready, her strength a flame that no shadow could extinguish. The Schuylkill River glittered under the city's neon pulse, its surface a canvas of reflected dreams. Maya Daniels stood by the water's edge, her tailored blazer sharp against the evening breeze. Her jeans, a nod to the dreamer beneath her lawyer's armor, her high bun still pristine, caught the glow of streetlights, a testament to the strength that had carried her through the crucible of her law school graduation. A month ago, the dinner at Lille, where the Reed family's prejudice had clashed with her unyielding resolve and Aiden's belated stand, felt like a distant storm. Now, as the city hummed around her, Maya was forging a future on her own terms, her heart alight with possibility. Aiden stood beside her, his hand warm in hers, his dark hair ruffling in the wind. His gray sweater was a quiet contrast to the intensity in his eyes, a vow that hadn't wavered since he'd drawn a line against his family's bias. The Kessler and Lane offer announced by Professor Carver that night had been a seismic shift, proving Maya's worth to a room that included the humbled Reeds. She'd accepted the senior associate role, her days now filled with high-stakes cases, and her nights with Aiden's laughter. But the scars of that dinner lingered, a reminder that love and legacy were battles won through action, not promises. Maya's phone buzzed, a message from her mother. "Proud of you, always. Keep shining." She smiled, her bun steady as she tucked the phone away. Her parents had watched her graduation speech online, their tears a balm for the Reeds' disdain. They'd raised her to stand tall, and she carried their faith like a shield. Aiden squeezed her hand, sensing her thoughts. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft but anchored. She nodded, her eyes tracing the river's flow. Better than okay. I'm building something real, Aiden, with you, with my work. Her voice held a quiet fire, tempered by the trials they'd faced. The Reeds hadn't vanished. Clara's silence was a fortress, Richard's efforts clumsy, Elise's remorse tentative. But Maya no longer needed their approval. Her worth was her own, forged in fire. Aiden's jaw tightened, a flicker of guilt in his gaze. I should have stood up sooner that night. I'm still unlearning their world, Maya, but I'm all in. He'd proven it since, skipping a Reed family gala when Clara refused to acknowledge Maya's role in his life. He'd enrolled in a racial equity workshop, his questions earnest, his listening. Each step was a brick in their shared foundation, and Maya cherished his growth, though she knew it was a journey, not a destination. Their walk led to a small jazz club, its neon sign buzzing. Inside, the air was thick with saxophone notes and the clink of glasses. Maya and Aiden settled at a corner table, their friends, lawyers, coders, artists, joining them. The group was a tapestry of color and ambition, a stark contrast to the Reeds' sterile elegance. Laughter erupted as Maya recounted a recent case, her bun glinting as she leaned forward, her voice alive with passion. Aiden watched her, his pride a quiet flame. This was their world, built on mutual respect, not legacy. A text from Elise interrupted the moment. Can we talk soon? I'm trying to understand. Maya paused, her fingers hovering over the screen. Elise had attended one of Maya's public talks at a legal forum, her notebook filled with questions. Their coffee meeting afterward had been awkward but honest, Elise admitting, I grew up blind to my privilege. You opened my eyes. Maya had offered grace, but trust would come slowly. She replied, next week, bring questions. Elise's effort was a seed, fragile but real. Richard, too, had surprised her. He'd sent a formal email requesting a meeting to discuss her work on housing equity. Their lunch was stilted, his questions halting, but he'd read about redlining, his curiosity a crack in his stoic facade. I misjudged you, he'd said, not quite an apology but a start. Maya had responded with measured openness, sharing case studies, planting seeds for change. Clara, however, remained a shadow. Her curt note after the dinner claimed misunderstanding but offered no remorse. Maya didn't care. Her light didn't need Clara's validation. At the club, Aiden raised a glass, his voice cutting through the music. To Maya, who's unstoppable. The table cheered, and Maya's laugh was a melody, her bun a crown of triumph. She'd stood on a Kessler and Lane stage last week, presenting a case that secured funding for a community center, her presence commanding a boardroom of suits. Aiden had been there, his applause thunderous, his eyes shining with awe. Their love was stronger now, forged in the crucible of that night. Each challenge a chance to grow. As the band played a slow tune, Aiden pulled Maya to the dance floor, his arms a sanctuary. We're building this together, he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. No one, not my family, not the world, will stop us. Maya nodded, her heart full. She didn't need him to complete her. She was whole, but his choice to fight beside her was a gift. The city pulsed beyond the club's windows, a reminder of battles yet to come. Clara's resistance was a stubborn weed. Richard's progress was slow, and Elise's growth was young. Prejudice didn't vanish with one confrontation. But Maya was patient, her strength infinite. She and Aiden hosted game nights, planned trips to cities steeped in history, their love a canvas of shared dreams. Her work at Kessler and Lane was a beacon, each case a step toward justice. Maya stepped back, her bun catching the club's dim light. The river outside flowed on, steady and unyielding like her resolve. She was Maya Daniels, lawyer, lover, warrior, and her story was still unfolding. The Reeds had underestimated her, but their legacy couldn't dim her radiance. As Aiden's hand found hers, warm and sure, Maya knew this was her chapter, one of triumph and possibility, with countless pages left to write. Thank you for joining Maya Daniels' unforgettable journey of resilience and triumph. Her courage reminds us that love and worth are battles worth fighting. What moved you most about her story? How did it challenge or inspire you? Drop your thoughts in the comments and share where you're listening from, Paris, Philadelphia, or beyond. Your support fuels these tales, so please, like, subscribe, and spread the word. Until next time, keep shining, keep fighting, and we'll meet again with another story that stirs the soul. Stay bold, just like Maya.